Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of PSC Unscripted. We are back with Miriam. Miriam, we recently spoke on the latest episode of the Presales podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's great to talk with you again, Matthew.
Really good to have you
Really
back on
good
the
to be
show, and I
here.
understand it is late for you.
Well, I'm in a funny time zone, but yeah, really happy to be here.
I'm lucky to be back in my home EST, and today you will be talking to us about scaling up lessons from a $3.2 billion ERP transformation. Before we get into that, we have a quick word from our sponsor. If you're in enterprise sales or marketing, you know that demos can make or break a deal, but creating effective customized demos at scale, that's a real challenge. Reprise is the leading AI-first demo creation platform designed for enterprise pre-sales, sales, and marketing teams. The platform enables you to build customized sales demos, interactive leave-behinds, complete sandbox environments, and product tours, all from a single unified solution. With Reprise, you can deliver consistent, high-quality demo experiences without the technical complexity. No more relying on fragile live environments or spending hours on demo prep for each prospect. The results speak for themselves. Enterprise teams using Reprise are shortening sales cycles, reducing customer acquisition costs, and increasing conversion rates. The platform has delivered millions of demos for leading companies including Cloudera, Databricks, Pendo, ServiceNow, and Zendesk. If you're looking to scale your demo operations and confidently showcase your product's value in every customer interaction, visit reprise.com to learn more. That is reprise.com. And secondly, if you're not already a member of the Presales Collective, we've recently launched two new membership tiers, Pro and Pro Plus. Pro gives you access to community roundtables, the full event archive, and a ticket to one of the new in-person workshops. Pro Plus includes all that, plus live courses, skill building sessions, and leadership resources. Learn more on the PSC website or hop into the free Slack and ask someone from the team. Miriam, again, thank you so much for
Yeah.
being here and having another chat with us. Let me give you a quick introduction. And this is something that I know about you from the last time we talked. For anyone who's not familiar with Miriam, Miriam spent 20 plus years as an individual contributor in data and analytics and 10 years as a pre-sales leader. Miriam ran a national organization at Burst, a $30 million analytics company purchased by that $3.2 billion ERP conglomerate, which we're going to hear about. Miriam, you say you're in the give back phase of your career. So tell us a little bit about that before we jump into your story.
Oh, well, just over the years, I've done a lot of coaching and mentoring and helping people figure out what career trajectory they really want to be on. And I really love helping people find that same thrill in pre-sales that I did. I loved it as a career. And so that's really what I'm focusing on these days, just helping people with their career planning.
That sounds amazing. So thank you for your enthusiasm. And please, the topic is massive. Scaling up $3.2 billion. Tell us about that.
I'll tell you what, it was a crazy time, but really one of the defining moments of my career, right? Leading a group of 20 solutions engineers at a million dollar startup, and then suddenly being part of a $3.2 billion conglomerate. I went to a meeting of SE leaders uh, at the new company early on, and there were 40 managers there. That was
40
twice the size
managers.
of my own team, right? 40 managers. I was one of two leaders at Burst, and suddenly I was one of 40. And so
What did you
just
feel walking into
scale
that
was
room? I've never even
so,
seen 40 SEs from one company in a room at a time. What were
well,
you
and this is
thinking?
just 40 leaders.
Yeah.
So the scale was just absolutely massive. It was a classic kind of David and Goliath situation, right? When we got acquired, we'd been this kind of nimble startup company, fly by the seat of your pants, do the best you can, and then suddenly we're part of this large enterprise structured company with a lot of process, and it was extremely scary, right? I mean, I think the overriding sense of my team at first was just fear, like first of all, how would I fit in? And second of all, will I even have a job, right? Are they just trying to acquire us and get rid of us? But it honestly, it was exactly the opposite, right? Like most acquisitions, they're either, you're the poor stepchildren or you're the new golden children. And it was more of the latter. Like they purchased us because they wanted this influx of analytics into their sales. And
That's amazing.
so all the teams, when I went to that managers meeting, all the teams were extremely interested in what we were doing. And like kind of the first test was their annual users meeting was about a month after we were acquired. And so they had like 20 to 30 separate ERP systems, and all of them wanted to showcase our analytics solution at the user meeting. And so it was just, we went from fear of were we going to be fired to massive fear of how were we going to be able to service all of these needs to create all these demos. Like you were just talking about reprise, sorry, and like how you can automatically create demos. We didn't have anything like that at that time. And here we're going to this users meeting and all the teams, like 20 different teams, wanted a new demo. And we had to learn those industries and then build demos for so fast. Within a month, we had to get something for each of these different teams. And at that time, I mean, there was no data because they were used to showing transactions, right? And not trends and a story and analytics. And so we had to create a bunch of historic data, and then we had to learn enough to tell a story that related to their products, and then share that with those teams. It was just a huge, huge amount of work. Um,
So you came
so
in and you were feeling fear. You and the team felt some fear. Suddenly that gets transformed when you find out you're the golden child and everyone wants to show off the solution. You have this 1 month to understand a lot of new industries and put together these stories that had never been told before. And
right.
how did you and the team handle that?
Well, thanks for asking that. What we did, being sort of jack of all trades, like people knew my SEs knew our entire product line, but we couldn't know all of these ERPs. So we set up a specialization program where each SE took one or two of these different ERP products and they started attending their team meetings, learning all the details about those products and what they did and what the key challenges were to who they were selling to, and just focused on that one area. And so not only did that help us get the demos built, but it helped us integrate with those teams. And really, one of the first big lessons we learned was that our new customer, yes, it was our external customers, but really it was this Infor Salesforce
Mm,
and SEs, right? Because we needed to get them on board with this and turn them into our own additional sellers, right? It was like how to scale us by 20, right? If each one of us could teach the other team, that was suddenly 20 times the number of SEs out working on our products. So, and they had previous analytic acquisitions that didn't go so well. And so there was a lot of skepticism amongst the Infor sales force. So it was as much about building those relationships and earning trust with that team. And then that's when things really started to take off, right? Like once we started becoming an integral part of those teams, we had huge successes and people were able to really accelerate their careers.
you said that the sales teams that you were working with had been burned before by analytics teams that they had tried to work with. And that sounds to me like a customer problem. And you said you found out that your new customers were actually these sales teams you were working with. Tell us
Yeah.
more about what that realization was like and how that shifted your approach.
Uh, well, we really started focusing on how do we explain our value proposition to how that will help them sell additional ERP or kind of get to a higher level in the sale, right? Like selling an ERP, you have a lot of people who are doing specific tasks that you're demoing to. But to get to that next level of management, you have to kind of get to the so what, right? Like, why do all these things matter? And
You have
so
to balance
turning
these
that
two things,
into some
right?
kind of trends or story in the data and why this more streamlined approach to whatever they were doing would help them improve or change their business was really what we learned was important to get to their pre-sales and sellers. And so we really just started focusing on being integrated into their bigger story. Like, what is their bigger story and who are they trying to sell to? So really understanding the needs of that sales team, just like we would normally understand the needs of an end customer.
I've got a probing question. You said the existing stories of these sales teams across the set of sales teams you were working with. What percentage do you think had a good idea of the story they wanted to tell? And what percentage did you have to come in and be very consultative of actually how to tell an impactful story?
Well, it's just that the story was changing, right? I mean, I think
Mm.
they had a plan of how to talk to the to the whatever, the accountants or the whoever it was that their end customer was, but how to get to the management of that company was often difficult, right? Because they were more sort of transactional in nature. And so this was about how to take that up a level and talk about how it could change the business moving forward and either save them money or make them money or save costs, right? Always. So they all wanted to do that. They just needed some broader data. I mean, they had good ideas. Like we worked together to build these demos, right? They'd say, well, this is what we would have wanted to be able to talk about, but we normally can't because we didn't have the data for it. So it did all come down to, I mean, it was really hard at the beginning because there was this huge data issue, right? And so, and then also there was some kind of quiet influencing without really authority in the background, right? Because uh, the way you sell analytics is very different from the way you sell a transactional system, right? Like
Oh, yeah,
a lot of
absolutely.
their demos had previously been either demo by PowerPoint or very
Gasp.
scripted, not well, and to sell analytics, you're talking about ease of use. You're talking about the fact that users can see and analyze their own data and follow a question to the next question. And so you have to be facilitous with the tool. And, if somebody says, well, how would you do this or how would you do that? Be able to easily shift to show that. And that was a style they weren't really used to. And so we had to kind of say, well, like, well, that's not how we demo. I'm like, well, but to sell an analytic tool, this is a nice way to really make it shine or make it show how simple it can be or whatever. And so there was some quiet influencing in the background about that.
Talk to me about the level of resourcing that your team had after the acquisition, because we're talking about from 30 million to 3 billion. That's a 100x increase. So did you
I
get
know.
100x the resources?
Uh, Not really. I mean, we did get, of course, new resources to help out. Um, but it was more that it felt like we had 100x people we had to serve.
100x the tasks to do? Is
Um,
that right?
yeah, there were a lot more demos to do, but then a lot more, um, let's see, we did get, actually, we did get really good access to really smart industry people, right? So for each area that we were going into, they really knew the challenges of those. There were industry specialists who really understood the challenges of those industries.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
we got access to that and they helped us with these demo stories. And so that was good. But it was on us to get the data together and, um, use the tool to create the demo flow, create a demo, the actual screens, the dashboards and what have you, um, and
I think
interactive query.
that's a really interesting point that you make. Being able to go extremely deep on each of the verticals that you're selling into. That's the kind of thing that you can do with more resources. If you're leaner, it can be hard
Yes.
to find the right consultant or invest that kind of thing. And that's not something that I've really considered before. So maybe one for everyone who's at a bigger company, that could be something
Yeah.
to think about.
Sometimes it was hard because they'd say, well, we'd want the demo to show this, 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 and this. You can do that, right? Right. And of course, we wanted to say yes, but some of those things were very hard. So
Yeah.
we had to kind of mm, mold it around the story they wanted us to tell, but make it something that we could make interactive and uh, fun to show, right?
How did you see your team change, let's say a year on post acquisition?
Yeah, that's a great question. It turned out to be so great for our team members, right? You go in, it's thinking, it's so scary and acquisition, but it led to really acceleration of people's careers, right? From acquisition to acceleration. They, uh, some people became like very embedded in those specific teams that they specialized in and ended up going to those teams. Other people became real analytic heavyweights that would get called in special situations, you know, during their sales cycle. Some people uh, were really adept at the product specific areas of how do we integrate our product into their product. And so they went to product management or even an engineering team. And then, so there were so many different places to go. And then there was this industry team, right, who knew the industries really well. And then the value engineering, right? So they had specific teams for how do we determine what the value of this is going to be to a customer. So a lot of new career opportunities popped up for people. And even just, staying in our hardcore analytic team, there were so many more places and types of demos to get involved in and people to meet and things to learn. So uh, it really, you could become highly technical or you could become highly good at the integration. There were just lots of different ways to grow. And so I think people felt like uh, it allowed them to figure out their passion and follow it. Same as we had talked about on the podcast I
On
did
the
with you.
podcast. And
Yeah.
how did you experience it personally when it came to your own career growth?
Well, it was so cool to suddenly have all these peers. I mean, again,
Wow.
in an organization where there were two SE leaders. So if we had a problem, we just had to kind of come up with a way to handle it ourselves. And suddenly I had all these peers I could talk to say, how would you handle this situation or that situation? And it was like finding an oasis in the desert, kind of like when I found the Presales Collective, because there were just people who were doing the same thing I was. And
That's an admirable growth mindset because I think if that was me, I would at first definitely feel a little intimidated. The question that I would come up with is, how do I stand out now in a group of 40? I think I can carve out a brand pretty well when there's two of us,
yeah.
but that must have looked very different in such a large group. What was that like for you?
Um, I thrive on change. So I don't mind and I thrive on seeing somebody do something different than I do. And so to me, it was just a way to absorb a lot of new styles and new ideas. And uh, of course, it was intimidating a bit at the beginning, but also just so much opportunity. So I didn't mind that. And plus, we were it felt like a unicorn in that, like something different, right? So the whole analytics was so different from the transactional mindset of a lot of the demos that were going on in people. And so it felt like we had so many people we could influence and show a different way, but we could also learn a lot of things too. So it was,
Was there a type of persona or group on your team that the acquisition was really challenging for and maybe didn't work so well for at first?
um, well, people who were used to just working on their own. I mean, when you're
Mm.
a company like that,
So it
you
became
have
really collaborative.
to collaborate. You just have to collaborate. And so it takes a little bit longer to get some things done. And uh, you need to kind of rally forces and influence people and get all on the same page. And so people who are used to just jumping in the pool and doing their own thing was challenging. And so, but I felt like it was a chance to corral that energy and help them influence more people, help them learn about working with others. But that was hard.
Yeah, it sounds hard, but I think you've framed it really well. I mean, we think of the best projects that we've ever done at your company, someone else's company, the kinds of things that we admire. They're never done by one person. It takes a
No.
team to do something great. And
Yeah.
it sounds like it was a good opportunity for people to get out of their comfort zone, although that can be really challenging.
Yeah.
We've spent some time talking about what it was like for the team to come in, how the team grew over a year. What other kinds of things and themes came out for you when you reflect back on that acquisition?
Well, I think the main thing was to realize that with every challenge comes tons of hidden opportunity.
Yeah.
Like
You know what? I really
this,
hear that in the way you talk about this.
this was scary, it was hard, but there was so many opportunities coming out of it. And so to try to embrace that change and see how you can turn it to your advantage, I think that was a theme that came out for me. Another theme that came out for me is that your customer isn't always outside the company, right? Like we feel like inside the company, everybody should automatically, just agree, but it isn't like that, right? Sometimes you need to work your peers, right? Or work your colleagues, and um, that helps you become a more collaborative team, but it's important to recognize the importance of that. So,
So you're working your colleagues, you're working your teams,
yeah,
and ultimately you're learning more about yourself. You're pushing yourself and getting out of your comfort zone all along the way.
that's right.
Um, where were you when you found out about the acquisition? Do you remember what it was like?
Where was I? Um,
I'm like talking about it like it's some massive world event, but I think to some degree it probably was,
Oh,
at least for you.
it was huge. Of course, like the first 4 or 5 days, like no work got done, right? Because
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
just like it was just rumor mill, rumor mill, rumor. I remember I had a colleague who had been doing a lot of demos for this company, and then when it turned out that it wasn't that was because of a customer, but it was because of an acquisition, it was just like um, mind-boggling to everyone. And there was the excitement, right? Because it was a revenue event for us for stock options. And so that was a lot of buzz about that and a lot of buzz about were we going to stay together? Were we going to be farmed out to all these teams? People have questions about structure. Are they going to be reporting to the same person? That just all of that, kind of rug pulled out from under you stuff that happens when there's such a big change like that. And so, really, for me, I guess I do remember that um, this reframing of all that fear into, hey, they bought us not because they want to shut us down or tear us apart. They bought us because they want to highlight analytics in what they do. And so we have the chance to really shine and really be a big part of their story. And it's not that we're going to have less work, we're going to have more work. And so the problem is going to be figuring out how to clone ourselves and how to keep up with it, not whether we're going to have a job. Right. And so once we kind of got everybody into that mindset, then things started clicking and we started working and the stuff started getting done and it was fun.
So
But it was,
it's It sounds like you could almost tell once people were bought in. What was that
Yeah.
like?
Was rewarding when it worked, right? Like when the other teams
When it
and their
worked.
teams were like, oh, this is exactly what I want to show her. Oh, this will really help us. Or this person made a huge difference in our sales cycle. When those stories started coming in, that was just extremely rewarding. But before that, it was just scary.
Yeah. Um, what's something that no one tells you about joining such a massive company?
Oh, the amount of process that there's going to be, right? I mean, as a manager, there was a lot of, well, and also the number of system changes there were going to be, right? A new time tracking system, a new um, performance appraisal system, actually, we had a new sales, we went from Salesforce to something else. So, like, all of our day-to-day systems changed.
Hmm.
And that is, you know, that's like your infrastructure. You don't really think
Yeah,
about it. You don't really think you should have to spend time on it, but you use all those systems every day. And so people don't really think about the impact that's going to have. And so that was a bit of a drain, really. I
that
mean, it
sounds like
was
a drain.
fun, but
Es-
it's part of the change. So
Especially
try to
coming from a
find the
smaller
good
org.
in the new thing and say, well, at least this part is different or maybe better than what we had before. So
When I was at a 100-person company, I remember you kind of knew when these things were happening and you had an idea of why and you knew who was leading the changes and things like that. And it's probably just so different. And it just sort of the change comes and you must accept it. You don't really get the chance to ask questions.
yeah. Well, they tried to give us opportunities to ask questions, but certain things you just had to go with, right? Like we had to do these things. And then they were becoming a more metrics driven company, like we were every month or a quarter, reviewed based on certain metrics. And we hadn't been as strict about that in the company that we came from. And so that was kind of scary too, especially since a lot of the metrics were really more founded on an ERP type sale, not an analytic sale. So we had to keep saying, yes, but look, for us, we would do this, this, and this. So we should really have some slightly different measurements. Oh,
Yeah,
but
of
we need
course.
consistent measurements across the board, right? So how do you maintain your individuality but still fit into that big organizational structure? It's just something, it's the difference between a small company and a large one. So
That really is the difference. So we've
yeah,
talked about a lot of different things from our different
yeah,
perspectives. Are there any final thoughts you've got on what it was like scaling? Again, 100x.
yeah,
went from a 2 liters to 40.
Forty.
That paints
So
such a
great.
picture in my head. I can't
I
believe it
know.
almost.
Twice the size of my team, number of peers. It's so weird. Um,
So weird.
no, I would just say my two enduring lessons, I think I've mentioned already, you know, embrace the change because hidden in the change is tons of opportunity. And so just finding the opportunity that works for you. That would be the one. And then, you know, realizing that customers can be found inside your own company and making sure to make allies and friends and bring people to understand the joint value and collaboration. And then
Yeah. I
that's good.
really see you finding opportunities in all of these changes. So, Miriam,
Yeah.
thank you very much for sharing your
Yeah.
story with us.
Fun to talk about. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's like going down memory lane, and me, I'm like, oh my goodness, that sounds so scary. But you did a great job, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for tuning
Well, it
in.
was a pleasure being here. So thanks everybody for coming and look forward to talking to you again sometime, Matthew.
Of course, Miriam, have a great rest of your evening. And everyone, thanks for tuning
Okay.
in. We'll see you around next time on PSC Unscripted.
Okay.